Hello, everyone. It's the first post-GenCon stream, and I'm happy to bring to you some more return stuff. So let me start with showing what I will be working on today. And it's going to be a bit purple. Well, not glitter, likely not pink. So that's the guy that I will be painting today. That's Kastore, the Awakened. I'll just call him Kastore. Probably more of an Italian pronunciation just to make it sound more vampiric, I guess. Just more interesting. It's an amazing miniature for sure, and I'm really happy that I will be able to share with you guys how I approach painting this guy. But before I get there, I want to do a short wrap up of what I've painted already from the keyword and what I painted last week, because this is the miniature that I painted last week. This is the new Miss model, the Miss Contact model. 99% of the painting was done over the stream, and I think that I only maybe, well, sprayed varnish, obviously, and painted and added some more of the still water effect on the base. That's it. Apart from that, everything was painted in the stream. Let me just adjust the position of my white backdrop. All right. Should be good now. So that's the Miss Contact model 2023 Word Miss Miniature Alternative Arik for the Outcast faction. Lovely miniature. And now, a bit of overview what I painted. So let's start with the big guy himself. So that's Kastore Fervent. That's the titled version of the master. That's the only actually that's the only version that I've played so far. I haven't tried the first one because, well, I haven't really. Well, I played with proxy miniatures, so now I'll be finally able to use the proper miniature. And I've used like this pale blue skin tone with a hint of purple in the recessed areas. That's how I approached painting him, and I did like this damn old weathered loincloth that he's wearing, and some of the different contrasting colors on his wings. So that's Kastore, the beefy one. Now every leader needs wise counsel, so that's Gwill. That's the henchman from the box, and he is quite an interesting miniature to paint. He has completely different aesthetics, different vibe than other returned models. He's like this ancient dryad, hates Titania, and looks like a walking tree. Pretty neat. Then we have a henchman that has been the staple of every single Kastore crew I've put on the table. So it's Athorak. Quite nice miniature as well. Really finely detailed. And I read, I believe in the fluff, that he's wearing like a bat skull mask. So that's why the color of his face is different than the body. And now one of the blood vessels. I just painted one, the one that I like the most. I will paint the other ones shortly, but I just wanted to have one to put on the table. I don't know if I will ever put. It is a scary keyword for sure. I don't know if I will ever put more than one on the table, to be honest. Oh, but I might as well paint all the three. Now the coolest miniature, I think, in this keyword, Marathene, so the totem, the magical sword that's consuming the Nephilim. So the Nephilim that it's consuming are blue, just to contrast slightly with the returned Nephilim that I have. And the blood is done using a combination of different types of blood effect, finished off with some extra varnish, glossy varnish. And I also sculpted a little rock on the base just to put it in a position that I thought was slightly more interesting. At least I liked it more. So that's Marathon. It's hard to get focused on that because there are so many different types of small elements on this one, including the sword and those three Nephilim that are trapped in it. That's the one that I painted actually a while ago. It's Barbaros, the alternative version, so my favorite version by far. Well, there are two versions, so that's the one that I liked much better. And for him, I chose the classic Nephilim approach, so blue skin and purple wings. And those are the urn bearers that I painted over my stream in July, I believe, yes. Middle of July, that's where I painted these two guys. One is always a staple in each crew, and they also have masks because they help so much with the unpack. And now two fun miniatures. So that's Cavern Nephilim 1 or 2, don't really remember which one it is in the app. So he's much thinner than other for example, mature Nephilim. Quite dynamic pose. And the other one, something where I did some sculpting on the base. So that's he looks like a bat. Oh, there's a cat hair glued to that. Not anymore. So I did this base like this. I believe it's stalagmite. That's the one that's formed from earth towards the ceiling and caves. And he's just taking a rest, taking a little nap. And I did a little bit of tweaking to the model, and that's maybe worth knowing because I also learned it somewhere online. I actually learned it for resin, but it also can work with plastic. So if you want to bend the miniature a little bit out of shape, and what I did here, I wanted the legs to be a little bit more elongated, not to be bent, so that he looked as if he was just resting with his legs more stretched than not. So what I did, I put the legs in boiling hot water, like really hot water, bent them slightly, and then straight away put them in ice cold water. Because when the plastic heats up, you can bend it without breaking it, and when you put it back into very cold water, then it keeps the changes, saves the changes that you make, the tweaks that you make to the shape of the model, and it just stays this way. So that's the overview, and I would say that my favorite was that so far this has been my favorite to paint, and I will be replicating the work on the skin tone. Maybe I'll make Awakened more pale, so less blue, more white. But I'll see as I go along. But definitely he'll be similar to this one. And also for reference, I cut out this from the box just to have some reference. Maybe not as pale, I want him to be slightly bluish. And I also have two of these guys, so who knows? If I finish him earlier, maybe I'll start working on these guys as well. I don't know, but for now I want to start with this guy. Thank you, glad you like them. I'm sure had fun working on them. And the miniature has been pre-shaded, but what I mean by that is that I first sprayed black and then I sprayed white on top of it. So what it does is that the recessed areas are still a bit darker, slightly darker. You can see it more clearly on the base. And when I put this miniature in this way that it's seen from the top, and the raised areas are brighter. but I want to add a bit more contrast from the get-go, so I'll start with an overbrush with white, and for that I will use my dry brush from Army Painter, which has a very thick bristle, and it's extremely good for dry brushing. And I will take Elfic Flesh, and I will just give it all a nice little overbrush of white. And as usual, I'm using my miniature holder, which is magnetized. I mean, the miniatures are magnetized because that's for me the safest way of transporting them. And it also helps to keep something, to have some kind of handle when I work on them. And the nice thing about those brushes is that typically you would go with dry brush, just moving it horizontally or vertically. And here with those, as they have very, very thick bristle, I just tend to move them in more of a, well, rotate it on the miniature and kind of push the little highlight in. It's really not a highlight, it's call it overbrushing, because what I do is just I focus on the most raised areas like the cheekbones or the nose, the ears, tip of the horns. And the interesting thing is that we still don't know too much about Kastore. We know that he's some kind of ancient Nephilim that feeds on other Nephilim for some reason. He needs black blood to sustain him. So that's just to generate more robust highlights, just so that they are. If I do it now, it will just facilitate the process, the way I approach it. Okay, that's it for those quick small highlights. Let me just clean it well. All right, and that's the base part done. Now the next stage is actually the basic colors that I will be applying with glazes and washes. And then I will move to oil. I will do some more dry brushing or over brushing, and then I will do some oil paints. But maybe before I do that, I will just, one thing I want to get out of the way, because it's something that for some reason just keeps me distracted using the game terminology. And I don't like, and really don't like when the rim of the base is so bright. Because for some reason it just doesn't work for me, and I need to get it out of the way straight away. So I'll just go ahead and paint around it with black. And that's already looking a bit better. Now, I will actually start from the bottom. So I'll start with the skulls, and I will just, to begin with, I'll give them the skeleton horde wash on over all of them, or maybe not this one. I'll actually start with Basilic and Grey, and first I will just fill in all the spaces in between the skulls with light gray. It's really light. Actually, I need a new pot of that because this one is almost empty now. I've been using it quite a lot. So clearly it's one of the better contrast paints. I mean, overall those are very good paints, but this is one of my favorite by far. It's excellent for painting metallics. For example, if you paint swords, you just put a layer of silver, like bright silver, then wash off basilic and gray, and it takes away the shine. It puts some nice matte look onto that. And moreover, it also shades nicely the contours. And after that, it's just a matter of placing a few highlights and you have a nicely painted true metallic metal silver weapon. Some of the gray got on the skull, which isn't a problem at this point. Can still be moved around. I'm going to take my time because it seems like it's a large miniature. It's size 3 in game, I believe. Oh, and for comparison, this is how he looks like next to the titled version. So both are quite big, and the titled one he is larger. However, he's hunched up in this position that his true size doesn't really show, but he's definitely beefier, much bigger muscles. Even his face is bigger. Now the skull color, so the skeleton horde for the skulls. Which is a very good starting point. Because it's not a very strong color and I can easily transition to another one. So right now it's just all about even coat of skeleton horde on top of all those skulls on the base. And the base it's a resin base. The only thing I did is I just slightly adapted it to fit the miniature perfectly. So what I mean by that is I added a little bit of modeling putty next to his hooves, so that it doesn't look like he's floating on that base, but he's actually standing on firm surface. And the base is really good quality. It's resin, and it was made by MicroArt Studios, I believe. Yes, MicroArt Studio, which is actually a Polish company that produces nice resin bases. And skulls seem thematic for Kastore and for Neverborn in general, because those Neverborn are generally the creatures of nightmares, right? So they evoke some kind of feeling of terror and horror, and skulls just seem to go along quite well with that. And also, over the course of the stream, I want to show you guys how to paint this effect of clothes that have seen way better days, like his loincloth. It's badly damaged. What I mean is something like we have here, where you have a hint of green, a hint of brown, and it looks just like it's seen better days. Now it's just a matter of going over it one more time to make sure that there is no base coat showing through. I will allow it to dry completely before I start highlighting it, and I will do that much later, because for now I want to do the base coat on the loincloth, and then the skin, then some details, and overall I think that within the next hour and a half, I'll be ready to start work with oil paints. So now I'll take the Templar White, give it a good shake with the Vortex Shaker. Maybe also give it some extra shake with my hand, just to make sure that it's actually one of the paints which needs a bit more shaking, because what happens is that on the bottom you see the pigment. It just got stuck there, got trapped in the base. And what we want a good distribution, even distribution of pigment with medium, which forms the liquidy part. So it's water mixed with some chemical medium to improve the flow of the paint. Now I will give it a bit more of a shake. Looks better. And I can start applying it. I'll just put it on the palette, which is an old CD. Actually, now that when I no longer use a palette, I kind of struggle to find a new one, because CDs are no longer available for general sale, I believe. Or maybe they are available, I just never really bothered to look for them. I just try to find old CDs which I no longer use. So I will just apply it over the white, and it generally looks like pale gray, which is a solid starting point. The part that's the deep recesses, it just won't do any good work on those parts at this point. And that's fine, because what I'm doing now is I'm just giving it a very, very subtle shade of light gray, and that will form a good basis for further work, because I will go over it with darker shades later on. But the fact that I just apply even this seemingly pointless step, so just adding thin coat of light gray, it just sets it up for further work. Even the recessed areas, you can probably tell by looking at the screen that, hey, Spilled Paint Pot, good day or good evening to you, or good afternoon, or whatever it is, but welcome. It looks a kind of chalky in those recessed areas where some part of the darker base coat is still visible, which again at this point is perfectly fine. And now the hooves. The hooves will be painted with different type of bone-like color. Let me just find it. It will be palette bone. So that's what I will do next. All right, and we'll just apply it just on the hooves, on maybe also on the horns, because I want to start building some kind of gradient. And just for reference, I will show you guys what I did with the other Kastore. So the horns, as you can see, there are different gradients on that, like going from light brown towards pure black. And you need to start somewhere, and I'm choosing to start with the brighter colors and then going to darker gradually. So palette bone now, and let's apply it because it's slightly darker than the one I used for the skulls on the base. And I see one spot of white, so I'll just clear it straight away, and the other one as well. So let's just paint the hooves. It's also a little bit more yellowish than the color I had used on the skulls. And the same will be applied on the horns. Because once again, this is just the base color, which will be tweaked with different shades of brown, going even towards black. And also there are those spikes on the wings. I just reckon that he could use wings as a weapon potentially, even though he doesn't have an in-game attack that uses wings, but still anything that could be used to hurt others is something that the Neverborn would have evolved into partially or developed along the way. So spikes on wings from that standpoint make sense. I guess. I guess they do. Maybe a little bit more on the hooves. I've seen already quite a few painted versions of this guy because the box, I believe, hit the shelves this month. So it's still fairly new, and people have been coming up with really, really nice paint jobs of this guy. Now for the medallion, what I'll do is I will base coat it with very dark brown, And for dark brown, I will choose. I think I will choose. I want to say not Gorgruntifer, maybe even darker than that. Yes, I believe it's Sigor brown. So it's almost black. Super dark color. I'll be just a bit more careful here. I'll switch to a fine brush with a finer tip, which will be easier for applying the color directly. And actually his hand is kind of in the way. And I want to make sure I make a clear outline for the medallion he's wearing. And also there is a kind of medallion that's hanging on his hips. And the title version doesn't have this one. I don't know if it has any meaning and it's in the history of this character in the fluff. Don't think it's mentioned at any point whether the kind of medallion he's wearing has any significance. So the chains are pretty small here, and they transition into this thicker chain. And the bigger version has this chain still. So either he got a new chain, or the links in the chain just stretched a little bit when he grew in size. And I also am curious to find out what is the connecting element between Kastore and Tiri, because they are the titled versions come in the box together. So Tiri the architect and Kastore fervent. And typically what we saw in the past was that there was some kind of connection in the fluff, like Mia and Damian and Bound, or Euripides and Rasputina. I guess they made sense from the standpoint that they use the same element. Not sure if there's any mention in the fluff where they meet already, or maybe I just don't remember it. Well, sure, prioritize work. It's for some people it's still middle of second half of the working day. So glad you were able to carve out a few minutes to join and take a peek and say hi. It's always great to see friendly nicknames here and people who visit every now and then. But fully understandable. But then you know that the Twitch, the word Twitch profile makes these streams available fully after the stream is over, so you can always come back and see the final result a couple days from now. Okay, now let's continue the tricky part of the medallion that's partly under his hand. Now that doesn't help the fact that I assembled the miniature. 90 minutes to go into your workday. That's not too long to go. Oh, and I heard this funny phrase that after today we are entering, and no worries, there will be no profanity. We are entering the WTF part of the week. So, what does WTF part of the week mean? It means Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, from now on, I've started using this, and I work at my daily work is at an international corporation well, US based, and most people don't take themselves too seriously. So when I write an email to someone on Wednesday, I don't start it by saying Happy Wednesday. I start it by saying Happy WTF, and it leads into it's a nice icebreaker. Well, maybe not all my emails start this way, but some of them do, and it brings the fun factor. And we all need to have some fun at work when we can, right? Because laughter makes many things a tad easier. Now, see, I can look at the amulet that this one has, and it has kind of triangular shape towards the bottom. 5:45 a.m. for you. Whoa, that's well, that's rough. But glad you were able to pop in. It's amazing how the word community is spread all over the world, and this exchange is just an very good example where one person is about to finish the day work day at work and the other person is about to begin it. Now the fact that the medallion here is directly under his outstretched hand makes my life challenging. That's okay. That is fine. I will work around that. Actually, I will start working on that straight away. First by just reapplying white where I spilled some of the darker color. I can already place some small highlights on the ribs just to make sure that the rib cage is more pronounced before I apply glaze on that. And I will do the same on the interior part of the wing membranes. Just making sure I hold it at the right angle. So smooth, quick brush strokes just to make sure that those lines are visible because I want them to be more bluish and the other part of the wing membrane will be more towards orange, purple, red. It's a bit of a mix. And the tip of the top of the ears also got some brown on it. So just straight away clean that up. I'll also put some light highlight onto the forehead and cheekbones and lower jaw just to make sure that I lightly touch up those elements because they will need to be significantly brighter. From the henchman on the tabletop. Well, the henchman, probably what you mean by the henchman is this guy, Atharak. So the henchman is a bit more on the purplish side, and this guy will be more like pale blue. So he will be more like this guy, like the title version. And he will have some black blood on his hands as well. And yeah, that's it. I don't know if that's special enough to differentiate him from the henchman, but I think it will do. And he's also way taller. He's just comparing him. Look at Barbaros, and Barbaros is a standard size to miniature, so he's much, much larger than normal sized miniature. And as for enforcers, I don't know if there are actually any enforcers in the crew in the return keyword. I don't think there are any. You would need to say which miniature you mean specifically, because that's another henchman in the keyword, the Gwill. And that's it. Beyond that, there's Barbaros, Atharak, Gwill as henchmen, and then we have minions like Kavra Nephilim. But of course, you can hire enforcers in from other keywords. Oh, the other big blue guy. So that's the other big blue guy. This is the same. This is also Kastore, but this is the, let's say, the first version, or Kastore 1. So this is Kastore Awakened, and this is Kastore Fervent. And I want them to be quite similar because they are essentially the same character. And we don't want any promotions. We promote within the community. That's it. So those are essentially two versions of the same character. But this one, he's called Awakened because he was awakened by Nekima from a long slumber. And he was locked as he's essentially a very powerful ancient Nephilim that's kind of unique because he feeds on black blood. So they sealed him off in a kind of crypt, and then Nekima woke him up in an effort to fight against Titania for the supreme rule of the Neverborn. And after he has beefed up, he got his black blood, then he became this version. So this one is it's maybe not classic because he's kind of finesse Peter, tough, hits hard, hits with blast, very mobile, and heals a ton and has excellent synergies with his keyword. And this guy does a lot of ping damage. He has quite nice scheming capabilities with his team. He has the radar like obey, which is incredible because he can obey the target. So he obeys the target like enemy beater, makes them take a charge action, and after that, the character is left with that he targeted is left with stunned, staggered, and is outpositioned. Well, 6 months, but those 6 months and some solid pre-workout. Now I guess we can start on the skin, and this will be a slow start because we'll use this one. So the fluff is, we don't have really much more fluff on him beyond that. Well, Well, I mean, I'm no expert on Fluff, but he's like an ancient Nephilim. And so they work in quite different way. And this one, and they have this, their totem, which is quite incredible, is this living blade. And this is the only miniature, I believe, in the game that doesn't have health pool. So it cannot be killed. So the only way to kill it is to kill the master, and then it disappears. And it's like, depending on which version you use it with, it can be like additional beater, which has consistent but low but consistent damage profile, like 2 to 3. You can put inhuman reflexes on it so that whenever it charges throughout the models, it pings them for 1 damage, and it can charge twice a turn with the fervent version because it can just fervent has so this guy has a nice combination. So I digress a little bit, but this guy has a nice action that he just makes his charge, he moves somewhere, and then he uses his zero action to place the totem next to him, regardless of where the totem had been before that, and then the totem takes the charge action. So he runs in, puts a lot of damage, summons the totem charges, and in a perfect setup finishes off a key enemy model like a scheme runner, potentially even henchman, sometimes even master. You're like a ninja, so you must be a very good ninja if you are completely invisible there. I don't like gyms as well, to be honest. I just find them, well, to be honest, boring. I just want to see the outside world. That's why I find jogging and riding a bike much more pleasing. So I've been riding my bike recent weeks because we have this challenge at work that we are teamed up in group. We're grouped in teams of 3, and the rivalry is about who gets the most distance within the summer months, so July and August. So for me, it means that these days I just generally most of the time wake up at 5 or 6 a.m., hop on a bike, ride for like 70 kilometers, 50 kilometers, which is like, I'm not very good with the miles equivalent, but my rough estimation is that it would be around 40, 50 miles. And then I start my working day. And it keeps me energized. Really, if I do it consistently, if I do it like 4 or 5 times a week, then my energy levels are just much higher. Well, and I missed what I'm doing now. It's Glyph Charger Gray, which again is one of my favorite contrast paint because it's kind of universal. It's a nice color from which I can either go darker or brighter, but for now I'm not going anywhere. I'm just giving a solid base coat of this color across the whole skin part. And also the chest now. That's why I placed small highlights on the rib cage just to make it a bit more visible. So it's just essentially a thin layer around the miniature. And I didn't even paint the nails on him because I can do that later, or maybe I won't even paint the nails because they'll be drenched in blood anyways. And we're approaching the first hour, so the timing is good. So it means that within 1 hour I will have base coated the miniature to the point where I can call him game ready. That's a issue I've raised many times, that if you don't feel confident while painting those miniatures, because let's face it, it can be a bit intimidating when you begin, especially if you don't have any previous experience with any kind of painting with acrylic paints, then the kind of resources we have available at every friendly local gaming stores, they are just really good and make painting much, much easier. And while applying it, I will also apply it more than once over the areas which I want to be darker in the long run. So now the tips of the wings, because the membranes will be more like purple, red, a hint of orange, visually appealing, more interesting. That's the goal. And we'll see how it works. Usually it works, somehow works out in the end. But whenever I have a miniature that I painted myself for my own collection, and I look at it after a few months, and it's a nicely painted miniature, I begin to see nothing but areas for improvements. Guess that's the kind of perfectionist in me. But I very rarely touch up on the miniatures that I already have sealed and painted, unless they received some unfortunate damage in transit, but that really doesn't happen. Hey, thank you. Thank you. It's already, yes, it is at this point that it's beginning to look like a properly painted 3D miniature. But that's a start. We are not there yet. And I have a tournament coming up this Saturday. Hopefully, I'll be able to join it. I've had a streak of bad luck with my previous tournaments because I haven't taken part in a tournament in a couple of months now. I have small kids, so there's always the matter that one of them can get sick overnight and I need to cancel all my plans. And last Saturday there was another tournament, and I'm still upset about it because it was in a different city, in Kraków in Poland, which is like more than 300 kilometers away from where I live. So get there on time. I needed to get up very early. I had already bought the tickets, so I needed to get up at 4 a.m. That's some commitment, isn't it? Get to Warsaw, and from Warsaw travel to Kraków. And I had been painting Kastore and his keyword just to make sure I have them available for the tournament. and I had been painting them until like 1 a.m. I was super tired after a hard week at work. Well, hard because of workload that spiked up. And then my daughter woke up at night. She was kind of anxious and didn't fall asleep until like 3 a.m. So at 3 a.m. I fell asleep, set up my alarm for 4 a.m. in order to catch the train, the connecting train. And for some reason I didn't wake up and I missed my train. So I quickly bought a ticket for the next one, rushed to catch it, and missed it by narrowly by 10 seconds and didn't go to the tournament. So I didn't go because I was like 10 seconds late for the train. So hopefully there's better luck coming my way this weekend. So what I'm doing now is I'm reapplying the same color in the areas because this is like if you look at it from the front, it's this dark highlights, this dark areas kind of frame the miniature, and his chest becomes straight away more visible. It's more striking, and if you do extra shades in the recessed areas, then you just enhance the all the elements which are located towards the front of the miniature. And I'll do the same on some parts of the legs, just to put a bit more shade from the get-go to those areas which I want to be darker in the end. And I will do the same on the part of his arm that's closer to the body, which will also be darker later on. So that's Kastore after 1 hour. And essentially, of course, it took some work to get to the point where he was assembled and appreciated. But as for painting, again, it's 1 hour and he's tabletop ready. You already have a few colors, you have some nice shades, some highlights going there, and it doesn't look bad. No shame. Now I'll start working on the wings, on the membranes of the wings, just to get some life into them. And I will grab a brush with finer tip. Because I don't want to go over the gray part. Very lightly define the top areas of each segment of the membrane. Now this is the kind of brush control that just happens when you paint and paint and paint and paint and keep on painting. And took me a while to get to that point where I felt more confident with my brush strokes. But again, those are acrylic paints, so very forgiving. If my fingers slip, if I make a mistake, I'm most of the time able to fix it real quick before it becomes a problem. Cheers, mate. Thanks for dropping by. It was nice to see you here again, and hope to see you again next time or another time. We don't get many people on live streams from Australia, so it's always nice when people from the land down under drop by to say hi and show that yeah, the Australian community, Malifaux community exists. So I'm gradually beginning to make more mess on the piece of paper which I use as my protection over the desk, which means that things are happening and progress is being made. So I'm now kind of defining the upper area of those wing membranes, and I will show you guys in a second comparison how it looks like on a painted model, just to give you a good sense of what I'm aiming for. So that's what I did with Kastore Fervent, is that we have this gradient transition from like greenish purple at the top towards purple, red, orange, and yellow. So that's what I'm aiming for here. Now we'll go with red, and I want to go with very light red, so I'll go with blood letter glaze. Now just paint the bottom section, and this straight away creates this kind of transition from light purple towards red. So the color choices are heavily inspired by the artwork, and actually maybe not the artwork on Kastore himself, hint of light red towards the bottom of the wing membranes, and kind of liked it. I thought it nicely contrasts with the pale skin tone, and that's what I've been using consistently for the returned models. Now the transition is not really refined at this point, but that's not an issue. I will apply several glazes here just to straighten it out and make sure that it becomes smooth in the process. There's still time for that. We are not halfway through yet, so plenty of time left. And I'm not going to rush it because even if I don't paint 100% of the miniature, my goal is to get to this point where I use oil paints. Show you guys how I use oil washes on such miniatures. And then I'm happy to call it done if we don't have any more time, because that would be like a major milestone in the process of painting this specific miniature. And oil washes are essentially hobby cheating and hobby shortcuts. Can work super efficiently. If done right. So I've done it wrong a few times just to make sure I do it right for the stream and save you guys time of trial and error. Okay, so now we're closer to this method, to this stage where I call tabletop ready. So it's more or less 1 hour of painting, maybe a bit less because I was showcasing all the returned miniatures at the beginning. So now what I'll do is I'll add a bit more volume to the horns and start building the transition that's similar to this guy. It's kind of good to have the other guy handy and use him for reference. So the horns will be gradually becoming darker and darker. I'll just wait for it to dry before I apply next color. I'm going to go with deep purple now for the top of the wing membranes. So that will, with this Kastore, I will have most of the returned keyword ready. What I will still need to paint is the white eyes. So the nasty little boogeyman, and I plan to paint him over my next painting stream, which will come in the last Tuesday of August most likely. So I'm kind of framing these brighter parts before I put more of a color differentiation in between them. So that's already becoming a bit more interesting, where we have this transition from darker purple going through lighter purple towards very light red. Now it's almost pinkish, kind of orangish pinkish. Clearly not what I want, but this is the work in progress still. It will evolve over the next 2 hours. Now I'll go with orange and yellow. And maybe some more red. I just need to grab orange. There it is. Fire giant orange. I will very lightly thin it down, because then it becomes a bit like slightly brownish, and I'm just applying it where the purple starts to meet the red. This will help with this transition. And at this point I want to do quick brush strokes, because I want to apply yellow straight after that, ideally before it dries completely, just to further boost this transition and make it more smooth. All right, so we have the purple, we have the orange. Now it's time for yellow. It's zealot yellow. Which will be used for the bottom edges. And I'll start from the front, because that's where the paint was applied first, and kind of try to drag the red and orange, well, the orange, and let it blend in with it. And now slightly darker shade into the lower bottom area of the wings. And I'll also add a hint of green, very light hint of green. Don't want to overdo it. So that's the razor part that's being hinted at here. So this isn't a very strong green, which is perfectly fine. It's called Troll Green from Vallejo Express Color Range. I'm going to just apply it onto the upper part, just kind of random dots of that to kind of help with the transition and make it look a little bit more complex, a little bit more interesting. And when I do it on surface of the wings that hasn't me to this to make this transition a bit more smooth. Hey, defective dice. Yeah, well, that's not the big man really. That's the pre-workout guy. The real big guy has already been painted and is looking ready for action. So that's the big guy, and I keep him handy for reference. And that's the small guy. And defective dice, man, really thanks for all those pictures from Word Chen booth. I'm kind of jealous that you were able to go. Who knows? One day I may make it. Not this year, maybe not next year, but never say never. Yeah, he just hasn't had his pre-workout yet and is a bit upset about it. But he's getting it soon. Letter glaze, is it the proper name? Yeah, blood letter glaze, which is like thin down red glaze, and I will use it on the going from the bottom of the wings up and try to kind of blend it together, push it up and kind of link it with the colors above it. I haven't put this guy on the table yet because I never really had proxy for the first version, for not the title version, for the awakened version, so might do it soon. I mean, I bet it's tons of fun. It's also thousands of miles away, but as I said, never say never. If I plan and book the tickets way in advance, then becomes the costs become. Now I'm using Fire Slayer Flash. So the effective dice, I'm sure I cannot wait to see your take or hear your take on what is your hypothesis, what we can expect from Ashes of Malifa, how it impacts. Do you speculate that there will be new masters or new titles or evolution of already existing henchmen into masters? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts because that's. I mean, we just get a snippet, right? We just got the cover, and I didn't even have a good look at it, so can't really tell whether there's any hint of what has actually happened. Now I will move to slightly darker brown with. I want to go with snakebite leather. Let me just find it. I have it somewhere. Probably it's too close to the front where I don't see it straight away. Oh, come on, where are you, snakebite leather? Yes, there you go. There it is. Personally, I would just like to see not maybe rapid growth, not a ton of new models, new masters, like more tech picks that would bring to crews, already existing crews, some of the facets that they just don't have access to, like armor in Neverborn or more shooting in Neverborn. Although we can't complain. After recent buffs to Angel Eyes, we finally have an excellent sniper. And I cannot wait to put her on the table again. I mean, I've tried her once in this edition, pre-errata, and she disappointed me. So hopefully she won't next time. Tough to say. Based on the name, I'm guessing this will be where we get some resolution of the current story arc. Could also be the last book for 4th edition, just going based on previous trends, so maybe some big stuff will happen like that. But last time, most of the big shifts in the station roles happened in the first book of 3rd. Yeah, that isn't very purple, that's true. Too busy reading all the stuff in B on the other side right now. Oh, right. Sure, that's understandable. I'm just hoping that they don't kill off any more Neverborn characters. They put away 2, that's enough. And don't look at Titania. She's fine. We don't need her. I haven't really followed the other side fluff that closely, so cannot really say what's going on there. But then I also expect the fluff from both going forwards. So now adding a bit more depth to the horns. Almost black, but will be almost black. Where is my dark purple, dark brown? Here's dark brown. No, she's too important. I'm just, getting concerned that I would be probably most upset if they removed her because I think that's the master that I have most games under my belt with, and she's just fun. She is fun. I mean, for now, I've been deferring to Kastore for the most part whenever I play any kind of pool or schemes or strats. But if I see a table which has a lot of trees, forests, then Titania just enters the fray by default because she really excels at taking advantage of severe and concealing terrain. This is, I think, where she and maybe not her keyword that much, but then the effigy, the Neverborn Emissary, is pretty much stapled into Titania 1, and he's just the unofficial Fey. Let's just put a bit more of green black here. And we are halfway through the stream, which is pretty good. Because, my concern about Titania is that she has raised interest of some powerful enemies, like Nekima, potentially Kastore, potentially Lucius. So she might soon be fine, and Vix for sure. So she might find herself at a place where there are just many powerful enemies attacking from different sides. Now for the loincloth, I'll go with orc skin just to add some like dirt to it and grime. Looks completely random, but trust me, it will all come together in the end. Once I've started applying oil washes, it will all start coming together. That's the plan. Now, after the green, I will use some, which is like this dark skin tone. Oh yes, everyone affiliated with the tyrants. That's true. That's true. So that's that's where I see her now. That she's like between this proverbial rock and a hard place, and doesn't seem like the allies. I mean, Euripides is a kind of ally, yes, though he's not that predictable. Plus, she suffered some losses after her battle with Vix. Marcus is an ally theoretically because as long as he gets something in return, what he gets is knowledge. Fourth edition Marcus with eagle and will be like this giant mutant that has the capability to use soul stones. And you heard it here first. Because there seems to be some kind of direction with certain masters who are gradually working towards reaching their personal goals. And Marcus's goal it's been growth all along, right? And maybe to bring it together a little bit, I will use Glyph Charger Gray. Now it becomes similar to the skin tone, but trust me, it's all going to work out. It's part of the plan that it looks a bit messy at this point. And now what I will do is I will kind of bring back some of the highlights on the wings before I apply. Yeah, Marcus get revenge on Cooper. So the hunted attacking the hunter, that could be an interesting take. He just needs to engage him, and Cooper is done. At least the first version of Cooper. He is in trouble after whatever engages him. And I actually liked reading the Cooper story, the way that technology was presented in it, because there was this, I believe, Italian artisan who made his artificial limbs, and the last version before the one that Cooper currently owns and has attached to his body became a construct. That's the henchman in his crew, and the robot, what's his name, is Model 9, I believe. There was a hint that this model is walking and trying to imitate all the moves that Cooper makes. So it's getting some kind of personality, and that I found quite interesting when I read the fluff. But it was a while ago, so I might be mixing things up, but that's something that kind of stands out to me when I think back about reading the Explorer's book. Oh, and I also like the wish list video that you made, and cooperative game, like board game that could use Malifaux miniatures and could be cooperative and could be potentially played as a campaign. I mean, don't think there is anyone who would dislike this idea, honestly. Because at some point, the game, when it keeps on growing and growing, when new models are being added, it becomes such a vast pool that it's just hard to wrap your head around it. So maybe there are different avenues that could be explored, help grow the game, but also explore slightly different ideas. But I trust in Brit. I'm sure they have some kind of plan to go forward. Oh, Perdita going outcast. My thinking would be that what would be cool, and I will now keep on working on the skin. I think Automatic Blue is to bring Lilith back, but don't bring her back to Neverborn. Don't bring her back to Rezzers, of course. We already have one Nephilim Rezzer. Maybe the Explorers. They could always dig out the site where she was buried and kind of bring her back. And she could be this fast-hitting, hard-to-target master that brings a lot of capabilities that may be lacking in Explorers. We already have one surprising transition with Barbaros being an outcast, right? So maybe Lilith goes outcast too. And there are some double faction masters and explorers already. Right, slowly approaching the second half of the stream. No, we have already approached it. We are in the second half of the stream, which is fine. Plenty of time left, and all I need is just to reapply this glaze of thematic blue on all the light body parts and allow it to dry. Now we need it to dry completely. While it dries, I can reapply palette bone to the hooves and maybe some of it to the nails, the fingernails. But first, let's do the hooves. I want them to be a bit darker than the skulls around them. So it's already looking a bit more interesting. And we'll carry on in a second. I'll just need to allow it to dry well. But while it dries, I can actually refill those deep recessed areas with slightly darker color. I'll actually do it with green black. And there are those tears here, or scratches, or torn pieces of fabric, whatever those scratches are supposed to represent. I will just fill them in with black so that they become more visibly distinct. And shortly I'll be able to start the almost final phase of acrylic use of paints. It's for a stupid reason though. I want her to go after Sonia Lady teacher for not inviting her to Porker Night. People have been killed in Mali for over seemingly less important things, so you never know. Okay, let's do blood right now around the eyes to kind of set them up for those dark red glowy eyes. Red, which will help with further work here, and maybe also the tongue. And while I'm at it, I will already give some of the pre-shade to the teeth, the upper jaw, lower jaw. And the earlobes, they could get some highlight as well. And then some maybe pink, just to make them also more visually distinct. But first a quick highlight, just a slight touch up with the brush. And now for the pinkish part, I think I will go with Magus Purple, Volupus Pink. And you know, those guild ladies, they have some, well, they're quite ferocious characters, let's not deny it. They are quite, if there are characters in the world of Malifaux that could get offended for a lifetime after not being invited somewhere, then it's definitely the guild ladies. Literally quite explosive, especially Sonia. Now I've just mixed this pink with white and we'll give it a light touch on the earlobe just to very lightly indicate highlight there. All right, time for some overbrush. And again, I will start with actually not the bright, the pale, the off. Well, I will go with off-white. I will just go with off-white. What the heck? That's the best color I can do now, I think. I'll just grab a different dry brushing brush. Make sure that it's a dry one. The other one can still be a bit damp if it is indeed a bit damp. So I will just let it dry completely. And I will switch to a slightly smaller one. Remove the excess of the paint and do an overbrush. So it really nicely brings up the raised areas, makes the detail really pop nicely. I was just looking at the outcast upgrades. They would actually make Perdita one pretty good, I think. So Perdita one is the master that has been kind of not too much existent. I don't think I've ever seen her on the table in this edition, maybe once. Back on the wings as well, but not too heavy. On the back of the head, front of the face, shoulders, head and shoulders, knees and toes. Knees and toes. Now the skulls, and I'm just using not vertical and horizontal moves, but rather trying to kind of rub it in. And that allows the paint to the bulky effect that can happen as a result of dry brush where you hit the surface from only one certain angle. Okay, let's clean the brush and get ready for the oil part, for fun with oils. I was just thinking that while I have some of the paints that are handy on the palette, I will just make sure that I fill in the most recessed areas with black, like those holes in the wings. This guy doesn't have flight as far as I remember, so that's why his wings are kind of damaged. And all right, one more important thing is to really fill in with black the eye sockets, just to make sure that they are fully black, because otherwise it looks bad. Smaller brush for dry brushing, but still large enough to give me the chance to target a sizable area. Okay, that's it. And one more thing I'll do is I will just go with standard brush and just go over the tips of the skulls where I see that there's still some of the darker shades showing through. I want them to be distinctly white because they will be receiving a deep brown oil glaze very shortly. Yeah, I mean, Guild is this faction that you can. I don't have anything against Bayou, so if I face Bayou, I feel just it's fine. For some reason, I just feel bad facing Guild because they are the usurpers. They are the nasty people. They are the well, you could argue and driven by less honorable goals, like the first for power. So they are kind of the anti-heroes of Malifaux, for the large part. Even though Guild was the faction that I started the game with, I have to admit. I just like those kind of cowboys fighting with caskets so much that I wanted to explore this side of things. And the reason I switched to Neverborn is right in front of me. The miniatures. They just have, well, obviously subjectively, the coolest miniatures in the game. Yeah, download the guild. I think we have some bit of a slowdown in the Twitch. Okay, should be fine. I just thought for a second that it paused, but hopefully it'll be back. All right, now for the oil washes. Here's the setup. I'll just place a few paper towels on my working But and I will put my palette for all paints, and I just need a thinner, and I have it right next to my workplace. Next to my workspace, there's the thinner, and now I need the oil paints, and I will be applying oil washes on the model, and then I will be removing the excess of oil. So that's the pipette, that's the important thing. And I will grab maybe Van Dyke Brown. You could use any kind of oil paints, it's really anything. Magenta, that's good. I will also grab Cobalt Blue. That's fine, I will just get it a bit darker. I'll also grab Zinc White. Or you know what, I will just grab a darker brown, which will be Burnt Umber. Those are pretty similar, but Burnt Umber is a little bit darker. And I will also grab black, ivory black. Those are the colors that I will use to create oil washes. And that's how I'm going to run with it. Okay, we have more than an hour to go. That's good. That gives me ample time. And that's the fun part. The whole thing is a fun part, but that's the fun with oils part. So we have this miniature that is pretty much base coated with contrast paints, some more subtle highlights on the wings, but overall rather rough highlights, essentially just dry brush. Maybe a bit more floral work on the horns, but beyond that, just rough dry brush. And we need to make it more subtle and go towards this direction with a few quick steps. I mean, those are quick steps, but I'm going to take my sweet time doing that. So I will just apply, I'll start with Cobalt Blue. Actually, that's the only blue that I have from oils, but that's fine. Because I can always change it with other colors, and I can put brown next to it. And then I can put magenta on the next one. They don't dry, really. I mean, that they take a good while to dry, so I can be as slow as I want to be with them. So those are the three core colors I would be using. I would be using white for highlights and maybe some black, just if I want to get things a little bit darker. So what I will begin with is I will just grab an old brush, one that I don't feel bad about destroying further. Let me just find the right one. I have a few of those now, which I just don't feel bad about damaging further because they've been put to heavy use before. Alright, this one will be fine. It's just important to have different brushes than you would normally use for paints, for oil paints. And now let's thin them down because obviously they are way too thick to be applied. So what I'll do, I'll just grab some of the white spirit and let some of the drops into the blue part and mix it thoroughly so that they have a milk-like consistency. What I mean by milk-like is like creamy water, right? Slightly thicker than water. But I don't want this black. Is very intense and it's a nice color, but it's not quite the color I'm after. So what I will do is I will just add a light touch of brown, and I will just dip my finger in brown and let some of it in. And then I have this dark, deep blue, like more of navy blue, but it's become a bit too thick. So I'll just add a few more drops of white spirit. And guys, the smell is quite strong. So if you work with paints, make sure you stay in a ventilated area that you can have fresh air if you need it. I can just test it. All right, it's super, super thin and smooth, and that's how I want it to be. And I can start applying it. So what I do now is I apply directly onto the blue parts, and it catches on so well. It just adheres to the. I mean, it just attaches itself, it levels itself on the surface. I'm not painting the part closer to the body because I want this part to be even a bit darker than what I already have. I will show you in a second why. But for now, just going over the whole miniature, giving it a generous wash of thin down oil paint, which is essentially navy blue, as it's light blue mixed with a touch of brown. And I'm just working on those more raised areas of the skin. So the face for sure. The neck, the upper arms, and now parts of the wings. Here I want to be a bit more careful because I don't want it to go on this part which is reddish, the back of the head as well. It's super satisfying really because it's just the flow of the paint is of the oil paint is just so much different than acrylics. I strongly encourage you to give it a go because it's just different experience. Whether it's something that you would enjoy, I can't promise, but it just feels different. And I genuinely enjoy doing that. So it looks messy now, right? It doesn't look super nice like this very dirty blue, not too interesting. So I will try to twirl it to get a slightly better tip and just go over those thin lines in between so that they get tinted with and the same M4E. The guild is in shambles. Somehow Colades had kills Lucius, Perdita goes Outcast, and Hoffman goes full Arcanist, and they blackmail Tony Orange into taking over Lucius' position. Now that's a nice twist. What happens with Nelly? She joins Jackdaw as a henchman because she's just mad and dead at this point, and she's raised from the dead. You see, I didn't put any blue on the back because this is a dark area. So what I'm doing now, I will just dip my brush into black and create an even darker mix by using the same mixing space. And you see, hopefully you can see it's almost black. It's distinctly darker than the blue that I have in palette. And what I will do now is I will just apply this darker blue directly, not worrying about blending it super smoothly with this lighter blue oil wash. And I'm just applying it into those more recessed areas like on the arm here, maybe on the neck. So it's just a dot of darker oil paint and the interior part of the legs. So the part that's closer to the body as well. And maybe on the neck a little bit, maybe in the corner here, and the inside of the hand, why not? Yeah, and maybe by the horns. And that's it. That's it for the black. On board. Tommy can't be blackmailed. She's perfect in every way. No one will have any dirt on her. Yeah, that's hard to put dirt on her. Maybe she could have knocked out more out of Carries when she had the chance, because Carries annoys me. I mean, on the table, but not as a character. On a character as this fierce lady who just rages on and maybe isn't the most elaborate character, but an important one for sure. All right, now, okay, I missed a spot here. I just want to reapply, and good. That's why I have a few paper towels, just to be able to clean the brush thoroughly. And she goes to the guild for protection. Oh, that could challenge her. So 1 more hour to go. What do we do next? I think we do magenta. White spirits mixed with magenta. And I'm just giving it a good mix, making sure that there is nice consistency. And again, the paint is a bit too bright and a bit too thick. So I'm going to dilute it slightly more. A little bit of brown to that, just to keep it a little bit darker. Have this more saturated. And you know what, even maybe a light dip of this navy blue. And now I have the deep rich magenta that I like. And I'm just painting the inside of the wings with it. See, it looks gooey, doesn't look really fancy. It's not about fancy, and I'm going to switch to finer. And I bought these for like the equivalent of $1, super cheap, and I don't feel bad about ruining them, but I want the magenta to land more evenly in here. And guys, trust me, when I do the next stage, it will be like magic, because I will create nice volumes of highlights within just a few minutes. And that's what painting with oils on acrylic paints is all about. Oops. Okay. Looks even more messy now, but that's good. She will arm wrestle almost for the minutes to become the totem when the mouse gets an upgrade. Yeah, actually, the twist that I would love to see, that I would really love to see in terms of totem becoming a master would be Mr. Mordrake becoming a master and English Ivan becoming a totem. Because that would make some sense. Because clearly Mordrake hates Ivan, and it seems like he's doing what he's asked to do, but maybe waiting for chance. So when the chance comes into the realm of shadows and pops back as Ivan and becomes the first explorer's master who is a ghost. And that would be fun, wouldn't it? And that would allow the creative team to, well, not really kill the master, but change the status of a master and bring completely new dynamics. So an incorporeal explorer's master. Wouldn't that be fun? Mr. Mordrake master. So that leaves us with the earlobes. And they will get some magenta treatment. And before I get there, I'll just use maybe the tissue to clean the brush. At least slightly clean it. Some white spirits. Of course, it's not critical to clean it thoroughly, but if you do it at least semi-thoroughly, then the brush that you're wasting on that anyway will serve you a bit longer. And now the brown, I will just need to reapply brown. And I'm just going to, again, reapply white spirits. Mix it with brown. Maybe add a light touch of black, just to keep the brown a bit darker than it is straight from the tube. And time to apply it. I won't be touching the base with it. I will be touching the clothes with it. Actually, I can do it a bit darker than that. I can do much darker. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just, now it looks really, it's starting to look really bad. Like completely random. As if a 2-year-old got hold of brush and decided to cover everything with paint. That's how it looks at this stage. But this is a stage. This is a phase. It will look awesome in the next phase. Evolution. And you may be wondering why I haven't touched the metallics yet. There is a good reason for that. I just want to do the metallics last because I want them to be extra glossy and shiny. So I'll first paint them bright, then bring them down with muted glazes, washes, and then bring them up again to proper glow. And this paint stinks. Oil paints don't smell well. I mean, the acrylics are pretty much neutral. You don't really smell them, but the oil paints have super strong smell. And then close space with them, you might start feeling nauseous. So make sure that you keep your windows open, that there is some kind of draft going through, ideally to force some air movement. And maybe a bit on the hooves as well. Right, almost done with this stage. And let me just clean up the space a little bit. And just what I will do now is I will try to clean the palette, not very thoroughly, just at least remove the excess of the paint from it. I generally, while working with never-born miniatures, I operate with the same colors. I'll just put it into the foil bag after the dishes. It will be less smelly if it's in plastic. And I'm cleaning the palette straight away just to keep things more under control. All right. Let's clean it up a little bit. Okay. Well, sniffing paints, I do it inadvertently. It's just byproduct of things as they happen. Alright, I have this one more bag, small plastic bag, and I will put those smelly paints inside of it. And see, no more sniffing. It's all locked in. And I'll just put the remaining tissues in it, and there we go, nice and clean. Not that smelly now. So here's where we're at, and the miniature, from looking reasonably different, started looking bad. Right? Doesn't look too nice. Looks like someone had dipped it into a container with thick paint and left it there. But we'll fix that. For now, we'll just allow it to dry. And while it dries, I'll just move to another significant part, which is painting the base. So I'll do this swamp-like effect, something that I did on Misconduct last week. So nothing really too inventive. I'll just grab my still water effect, fire still water. That's what I'm grabbing now. And now let's put a bit more color on the base, because I want the oil paints to dry a little bit better. So I'll just mix it with some green, and let's just say that I will do the plug bearer flesh, or maybe not plug bearer flesh. I will do the one from Army Painter, Malign and Green. Let's just put palette for, and the palette for oils is metal. It's actually aluminium, just to allow me to clean it up easily. So mixing Malign and Green with fire still water, and I'm about to apply it onto the base. Not going super heavy, because once it dries, it will lose the shine, which I want to have on the base, and I will bring it back with the use of pure still water medium, but that will come after the miniature has been varnished. So still not today, because ideally what you want for oil paints, you want to allow them to dry overnight. I mean, after the stage where I clean up the excess. Ideally, it should dry overnight. I'll see how much I can do, because then it becomes easier to paint with acrylics on it. Without it, it becomes a bit of a challenge. But nothing I can't work around. All that paint sniffing. which is just happens by accident. Really, I didn't set out to enjoy doing the paint sniffing part. Now time for darker. Best nightmare box taxes. Like a little sarcasm. Alright, so there is some kind of story behind that. Now let me add a bit darker green to the mix. Actually, I will add much darker green to the mix. Not this one, that one, orc skin. And I will apply it into those slightly more recessed areas. I don't want to put too much of it because it could otherwise just flow over and make a mess. We don't want mess, we can avoid it. Dropping paint on the floor. Fortunately, it was closed. Now I need a different color. I will take it. Hardened leather. Oh yes, the internet beef. That's where we all grab big box of popcorn and enjoy the beef online. So a touch of brown just to really make it look more muddy and less toxic. And then you know what's coming. Vomit is coming next. My special vomit paint. So there is this special effect paint called Vomit. Not this one. Where is it? That's it. The ref. The ref instigate. Yeah, just fanning the flames. So that's the special paint I will be using for extra muddy touch. Adding it because it nicely brings it all together, brightens it slightly, and adds this extra like warm feel to this swampy base. Because otherwise, I mean, green also will nicely contrast with this pale blue that we'll have soon. We'll have pale blue soon. It's just a phase we're going through to get there. I will allow it to dry and reapply the brighter green. But for now, here's what's going to happen. We're going to work on removing the excess of the paint. And I'll just put some more paper towels to prepare for that. And I'm going to use this thing, cotton buds. I'll grab a few standard size. At least that's the standard in Poland. I know that in different countries they come in all sizes and shapes. And where's my pipette? I seem to have misplaced it. No, I have it. And now what I'm doing now is I will just apply white spirits and I will use it for dipping the tips of the cotton bud in it once it's nice and damp. What I'm doing now is I'm just going over the miniature, try to position it in a way that you guys can see it, and removing the excess of paint, the excess of oil paint. And you need to be careful just not to rub too hard. You even get to the base coat, and you don't want to go that far. And I placed a little bit too much of the still water, so I need to be vigilant with that and make sure I push it aside if it starts going over the rim of the base. So I'm just trying to position it in a way that you guys can see it. I'm just gently rubbing against the miniature with some oil, with some white spirits, and I can just remove the excess of the swampy thing as well. So this is a fun phase because you see the effect of this long setup that's been in place for a while straight away. Now the wings, it's like uncovering the layer that's been applied too thickly. And I will remove some of it from the base. I'll switch to a smaller one in a second. But for now, just want to give it a good round. And the fact that I applied darker oils in those more recessed areas means that this transition will be super smooth between brighter and darker, which just goes well with how I want it painted. And time for the, maybe before I move to the loincloth, I will do those areas which are harder to get to. And you need to be careful, you don't want strands of those left attached to them. They just won't look pretty. And now the loincloth. As you can see, this darker oily brown stays in the recessed areas and gets moved out from those raised ones and just makes the highlights super smooth. And we are headed into final 30 minutes, so I may not be able to finish everything on this miniature, but that is not a problem. That was my goal all along, to get to this stage where I could show you guys how I operate with this oil wash stage. And there we have. This stage is complete. Just a few touch-ups here and there. I will show you guys in a second just an overview of the progress at this point. And let me just clean up the space. So a bit more cleanup. And I will show you in a second a bit more cleanup on the palette. Locking it all in a sealed plastic bag so that the smell isn't that bad. And I can just put this aside. So just put it back. And there we are. So that's Kastore after some oil washes and removal of the. I want to show you how awesome it looks. I mean, let's face it, he looks awesome at this point. And we could already call it done, but we won't. There are still some fine-tuning left that we can do. And I can already put away the oil paints. I won't be using them. I could use white for some extreme highlights if it was a larger miniature like the fervent version. I'd probably go for some very delicate highlights with oils, with white oil, but I won't go there. It seems like there is significant delay between what I see on my screen and what you guys actually see, but anyways, that's where I'm at. And as we approach the final 30 minutes of the stream, I'm going to work on really pushing those final touches. So what I will do is I will work on metallics. I will also do some final touch-ups on the face. Get started with it. There's still plenty of time. So what I'll do now is I will get hold of different type of paint, which I haven't really used in any of the streams before. And I've had it for ages, but I never got to use it. And I've started using it in combination with oil paints. So those are acrylic paints, but these are actually so what I'm going to do now, I will just grab one more of those empty bases that I have. I'll put some of it on the base. And I'll be using it for highlights. So it's an off-white, so very creamy type of white. I'll of course thin it down before I apply it. And just one thing to be mindful of is that the surface now acts differently than as if it had been covered with acrylic paints. And I will just go ahead and start applying it to some of the raised areas to go with this pale vampiric look. Thinning it down, and it attaches itself quite well to the surface. So the part on the line glove hasn't really dried for the time being. I would rather focus on the areas like the face, maybe the hands, maybe some parts of the wings, the earlobes. That could still get a little bit of a highlight. Just making sure it's properly thinned down. You don't. So for today, I think I will do some of the highlights on the skin, maybe on the wings. Actually, I will get very close to finishing this miniature completely. I think that by the end of the week, depending on how busy my work days are, maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, I will be able to show you pictures of finished. But I'm not going to hurry to get there. It's all about enjoying the process, really, and not pushing too strongly if you don't feel like. Unless it's a tournament day, next day, and you're prepared to burn the midnight oil just to get the miniature painted. Then you can do the same thing I did and not make your train and have your day, have your plans cancelled. Now the hands, it's just applying this thin layer of paint as it goes nicely with the, it just slides, it just glides on this surface covered with oil paints, which makes for fun highlighting experience. And I'm now building up this pale look of the skin. Some of the on the chin. It would have been easier if I had waited like 24 hours. Then the all oil paint layer would have solidified during that time, but I would just need two separate streams to just to paint the skin, and this way I can make it happen still. And that also helps me build, which we all want from a vampire-like creature. It seems to me that from my end, like the Twitch video is not super smooth. Hopefully, it's not like that for you guys. fingers, we also need to get them a bit brighter. And it's all done with the use of one color, one off-white from Scale. What is it, the name of the company? Scale Color Artist. It just works quite well with both with acrylics and the oils. The hooves also need some highlights. Okay, it's been stuttering. I don't know why. You see, it's been going pretty well, but I don't know what's happening. Why is there a stutter? I haven't changed anything from my end, so could be more of a global thing. Maybe the servers are reaching the peak of their capability. And you see what happens is that the front part is super bright, and when I move to the side, it's much darker, and this creates this more dramatic look, really, where the front of the miniature just impressed when you have very vibrant colors in the center where things are happening. So those interior part of the wings, I also want to, those veins, I want them slightly brighter. So now it's highly detailed work, but well worth the effort if you put your mind and heart to it, and if you have a solid brush to work with. And I've yet to try to field this guy. I haven't had any game with or against Kastore 1, so the awakened version, the one that you can currently see in the screen. Yeah, but maybe even this weekend. I mean, there's a tournament, so if I lose 2 games and I have third game and it's not going to be really that competitive, maybe then. Or if I see a scheme pool and terrain that makes sense from return perspective, then I could do it as well. Oh, insane weather. That explains it. We've had some rough storms in past days, so maybe the severe weather has hit the US as well. It's just this part of summer where the heat waves turn into severe rains and things become a bit more chaotic and problematic. But we still have about 20 minutes to go. I want to do the eyes, the teeth, and then I will call him almost done. Maybe some final touch-ups that I can even do offline tomorrow if I feel like it. But for the most part, this miniature will be ready. So I'm just trying now to use the same color, so the same off-white, but just go over a narrower space just to make sure that the previous thin down layer is there, but is becoming less and less pronounced. So that's all about this gradual and smooth transition. Let's get some focus in for this final 15 minutes and make sure that I get most of the work done. And tomorrow it's another word painting stream with Dag Bowen, also known as Guslada, and he'll be painting some newly released miniature as well. Not going to spoil it. You're just going to have to check in tomorrow, same time. So 3 p.m. US time, US Central Time, 9 p.m. European time, 8 p.m. UK time. All I can say is that the model that he'll be working on starts with letter P. And let's see if anyone can guess what that model is. I have to assemble it just to give you a hint of what model this could potentially be. Not sure if it helps, but it's a hint. Unless it's already been revealed on Word social media, and then there is no guessing game, just a matter of checking. Maybe a little bit on the inside of the wings, just to make sure that some are at least a little bit brighter. It sounds like my cat wants to get in. Oh, he's angry. He's scolding me. It is a very good guess. It's a very, very good guess indeed. The kind of person who makes things happen. Although quite the mysterious figure still. Cat, don't climb on me. He just want the world to see you, right? So there you are. Yes. Go out, maybe. Bye bye. Check to see that I'm alive, and he's out on his merry way out. So I'm definitely going to check in tomorrow to see how Dag is doing with this model, because I want to see it assembled and I want to see him work on it and chat with him as well. Now it's also about placing a few highlights on those folds of the material which are closer to the front, just to kind of deepen the contrast between shaded areas and raised ones. The same on the front, even more so on the front, where it's more impactful. What I want to paint over the stream are the metallics, but I've been painting metallics here on the stream quite a bit, so won't be using anything new, and I think it's just more beneficial to get a sense of the overall look rather than focus on those final details, which I will be just working on at slower pace. Maybe tomorrow after work, maybe the day after tomorrow. We'll see. Definitely I plan to have him ready by the end of the week. Just some rough brush strokes to kind of imitate the texture of the material. And I will maybe add some yellow glazes to the horns just to keep the face surrounded with a little bit warmer color. And maybe the teeth now. So for that I will switch to finer brush. This one should be good. I mean finer tip. Smaller size, finer tip. That's the combination I'm after. And the teeth of the lower jaw. So the lower teeth. And maybe while I have the brush with such fine tip, I will just add very, very delicate highlights on the face and on the forearm, on the chest, just very, very lightly, but clearly indicating as if light was hitting it from the front, slightly from above. Oh yeah, that's my Instagram. And before we wrap things up, I at least want to paint the eyes. So that's going to be fast and easy. Starting with red. Fill the eye sockets with bright light red. Now directly to yellow. And I will definitely be showing the finished version on my Instagram. It's just going to take me maybe a day or two, depending, because I will be doing it after work over the next day or two, and might be even able to finish it tomorrow after work. So now yellow highlight on the eye socket, and then now maybe a touch of red to the tang as well. And a touch of off-white, since I already have it on my palette. Maybe I'll just use a brush with finer tip. like this one. This should be perfect. And like a tiny, tiny white dot in the middle of yellow. It's what I want, and it's what I got. Maybe I'll just lightly under it reapply a bit of red. So what I still have to do are the metallics. There aren't too many of them. It's essentially the chain that he's wearing and medallion at his waist. So not that much. There will be some blood effects, of course, because he's a hungry and angry vampire. That's not ready to become his beefed up version yet, but is on his way there. He's on bulking episode of his fitness journey. That's for sure. After he's been cutting for decades. Would have made any creature angry, wouldn't it? Dead or alive. I may use some light touches of purple in those recessed areas, but that will come. It will have to come in better daylight once I've had a good chance to look at it in different light. Now, heavy. He looks like as if he's wearing red goggles, and now dry brush after I remove the that's more like it. And maybe while I have the brush handy, I will just reapply this light white at few places. Yeah, so those are the final minutes. We have like 5 more minutes to go, and I just want to end on a high note and feel like I've almost completed this lovely miniature. It's miniature, but it's pretty big. Size 3, I believe. So larger than a standard human. And almost through with it. All right, let's see where we are. Or maybe, one final thing. Just one, promise. I will just very, very lightly touch up the center of each eyelid with a tiniest dot of white. Just to add some more dynamics to that. All right, here we are. What's left at this point are basically just metallics, maybe some blood effect, but this Vampire of an Nephilim is almost ready, and I will share pictures of final version very soon with you. In the meanwhile, make sure to check out Dark stream coming tomorrow at the same time. Keep on happy painting, keep on happy buying of more Word products because those miniatures are awesome. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon in the next stream. Take care, everyone. Bye.